But Vinod, let's move on to maybe AI. What did you? I mean, how did you invest in OpenAI back in 2017, 18?
Yeah. 2018 is when we made the decision to invest.
And like, I mean,
Makes no sense.
Makes no, like, what gave you, like, in some ways, you can call it foresight, courage, delusion, like, to make that investment at that point?
So I think it's very important to have a belief system. In what people do is believe what others are believing as opposed to from first principles think through. So I'll give you two examples. Let me start somewhere else. 1996, Sun adapted TCP/IP in 1982, only once. Nobody else adapted it. Fine. By 1995, it was clear to me TCP/IP was scaling. I talked to Cisco, and their CTO told me they'd never do a TCP/IP router above OC12. Talked to Lucent, Alcatel, nobody was doing it. I talked to AT&T on all the providers, and they were not ever planning on using TCP/IP. I called Pradeep and I said, we worked together for 6 months, building a plan to say, we will build an industrial grade router for the public network. If you look at any literature from 1996, ATM was going to be the asynchronous transfer mode, to those who don't keep up with telecom, was going to be the protocol of the internet. In fact, I consider this one of my biggest contributions. We said, well, everybody's going on ATM. We will only do TCP/IP. And Cisco was doing multi-protocol routers, so they were still routing AppleTalk in 1996. And every conceivable protocol, we said, we'll build a TCP/IP only router for the public network with a set of characteristics, like atomic updates, like rollbacks, like almost like a database kind of functionality, but in network routing. And we clearly focused on this. Nobody else was doing it, and guess we won. And I don't think TCP/IP would have become the protocol for the internet if we hadn't started Juniper to do this. It's massive. But the result of that was on my first $3 million investment, we made 2,500x. You can compute the numbers.
That's what I'm doing in my head, but yeah. 7.5 billion. Okay, all right, yeah.
Right. In fact, it was either Pinterest or Snap going public. The Wall Street Journal did an article on the highest returns ever. And Juniper was number one in terms of multiple of money invested. In those days, 7.5 billion was a lot of money.
I think it still is.
It still is. It just, there was no outcomes where a venture firm made $1 billion. Now it's more common.
More common.
But it's having a belief system and building it. But to your question on AI, which I want to get to, I saw TCP/IP growing exponentially and near the knee of the curve. And I said, I don't care what anybody else is saying. The curve of TCP/IP traffic is increasing at an exponential rate, and exponentials look pretty flat in the beginning, and then a big curve. Same thing with AI. I looked at, in 2000 is first when I mentioned AI in an article with the New York Times. I literally said in that article, I wanted to be vague. AI will have us redefine what it means to be human. You can look it up, my interview in the New York Times. And I think we are very close to that now. But 2012, I wrote 2 blogs called Do We Need Doctors? Thesis being AI will be the doctor. And then Do We Need Teachers? AI will be the tutor. Both problems we are working on. But I saw the influx of talent into AI. I saw the rates, the beginnings of the exponential in terms of capability. There were all these curves about human performance is up here and AI is down here, but it's increasing. And it was clear to me, if you followed the data, the curves would intersect. If you followed the press, you'd believe nonsense about this won't happen. So it's fundamentally thinking from first principles, follow the data, not what everybody else is saying. If you follow what everybody else is saying, you're going to do the same thing. And it's not going to be that distinguished. But this idea of having a belief system and trying to follow data.
Yeah. So in that case, I mean, once you frame it, well, once you put it into that framework, I'm assuming that investing in OpenAI in 2017 or 18 must have in some ways actually felt simple.
It was simple,
because you had been working on
but
it
sounded incredibly ridiculous. So in the 20 years that Khosla Ventures has been around, it's the only investment in which I've ever sent an apology letter to our LPs when we made the investment. I said, sounds weird. It's a nonprofit. There's no business plan. There's no product plan. There's no revenue plan. But we're making this investment because we believe in AI. And it was twice the largest investment I've ever made as an initial investment in any company in 40 years. But it's about belief systems.
It's pretty cool. I mean, when you're that early, you're bound to be wrong. You're going to be wrong about a bunch of stuff. Does that bother you?
No.
Like, do you care that, you might, I mean, you had a great hit with Juniper, and obviously KV has been a top tier firm for the 20 years, but it's also probably gone through its own roller coaster at some times, right? Like, do you care if you're wrong or if you're kind of like not yet right? Maybe.
So there's actually a Harvard Business School case where it starts with a quote from me, why willingness to fail allows me to succeed. I would posit that if you're not going to take risks, you're going to do things that others are doing, because that's the low risk path. And then you're going to do something undifferentiated and marginal. If you're trying to truly innovate and renovate, you have to start with a set of beliefs that are different than what others are doing, and then find clever ways to hack your way there.
I mean, honestly, like, I cannot repeat this strongly enough. Like, as all of you are trying to go raise capital, like, this is actually a question you can, like, you go through your thing, which are, what are 3 things in my deck that maybe I am one of the few people in the world that believe to the extent, that is required. Hopefully all of my friends disagree with this because it sounds kind of wacky and loony. But if you're asking all of your friends and they're like, oh yeah, this is a great idea, I think you have a problem, like, especially at the super early stage.
If everybody agrees, then you're seeing consensus. And consensus is a bad idea. So we in our firm don't require consensus or even 2 people to agree on an investment. If one person believes that they should make the investment, they'll make the investment even if everybody else disagrees. I hate an investment. Sven and our firm can make the investment because we are optimizing for people who are thinking out the box, and I may not believe that or...
Yeah, I mean, this is basically what we do also. We only require one person to have strong belief to kind of make an investment for the exact same reason.
Most of the venture firms operate differently.
Yeah, they have these crazy kind of like scoring rules, like out of like 9. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I would give you one piece of advice. Most VCs will steer you along conventional lines because the formula works, like where it has worked. And that may be actually bad for you. Yeah. So be careful about listening too much to VC advice. We invested in 3 things in 2018. One was OpenAI. The second was Fusion, Commonwealth Fusion. Everybody told me it's more than 50 years away. And there's no way you can fund this, and it's only countries that can do this. Not right. The third thing, which is not yet popular, we invested in a public transit startup. So all I'm saying is thinking outside the box is really important. By the way, nobody still believes we can do a public transit startup, despite the fact that we bid on 4 projects where we were not invited to bid, because they invite Siemens to bid on public transit, not a startup. We won all 4 bids. We've not lost a bid yet. It's so compelling, but people still, even other investors, don't believe. So thinking out of the box is really important, is what I'm saying, and have your own belief systems.
So what are you seeing at the forefront of AI progress right now that you think people in this room probably are also still discounting?
I think we are effectively there already.
I think so.
It's just this future isn't evenly distributed, as they say. For people who are skilled in the art, O3 is probably better than most humans at most things already. But more importantly, O3 hasn't started designing O4. And that will accelerate the rate of development. So how many people have read a paper called Orders of Magnitude or Situational Awareness?
Oh yeah, by Leopold. Yeah.
Right. I think he's right. And most people just can't extrapolate exponentially and have a real problem. But I think we are there. But are there new things that are not proven? I'll give you a trivial example, which was DeepSeek. Everybody just assumed only the big companies can do LLMs, and they proved something different. And it's controversial what they really did, whether they stole. It just came out recently that when they say 6 million training run, that was only for the last run. I think they stole a third of the IP. There was a third of clever hacks and a third of real innovation. So give them credit. So I think the most important thing that did is opened up the idea that it's not only the big players with $1 billion to spend on a training run who can innovate. My favorite is a company we have called Symbolica that uses any mathematicians here?
Probably a bunch.
Uses category theory to approach AI, which would be orders of magnitude more efficient than LLMs and transformer models. These things are worth trying because the consequences of success are so large, even if the probability of success is lower. And so it's my current favorite on how you make LLMs much better, how you embed safety into it, because explainability, when you use math, explainability gets built into the system. And then safety becomes an easier problem. So I was just talking to at NeuroIPS, Yoshio Bengio, and I said, my view is safe. Math is the approach to add safety to LLMs. And he completely agreed. Most likely path. So lots of things to try still.